Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Moetivation, the show where we dive headfirst into the most amazing minds. If you missed part 1 with Maulana Ibrahim, it is fantastic. Happiness is unbelievable. You need to listen to part 1 to understand where the seed of happiness actually grows. We've discussed the first aspect of happiness, and now there are another 3 points that we need to discuss with Maulana. Maulana, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, and assalamu alaikum once again to all the viewers.
Maulana, we discussed the physical aspect and how important the physical aspect is. What were the other 3 aspects of happiness, and what do we do?
Just very briefly to say that we spoke about the aspect of happiness, and we said why it is elusive. We said that one of the reasons why it is elusive, we are looking upon it externally when Allah Ta'ala has kept it internally. We gave many examples with regard to it, and I also made mention of the difference between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure is to do with external forces. You know, for example, we feel that a holiday or a resort will bring us happiness. That is something that gives you pleasure, which is momentarily, which is for a moment. It doesn't give you real happiness. It is a means of happiness, whereas happiness is different from means of happiness. Then I said that there are 4 things that we need to have: emotional, physical well-being. Then the second thing is intellectual well-being.
Right.
I think it's much more important than what we can realize. Allah Ta'ala in the Holy Quran tells us, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Won't you ponder over the Holy Quran? One of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited alcohol, and really I thank Allah ta'ala for this beautiful prohibition, this beautiful act of wisdom. You have to see a person who is supposedly very well respected in the intellectual circles, and he's drunk. I remember a person, a very good friend of mine, who used to be in the bar. He used to be in the bar. I'm talking not, of course, but of course, in terms of the lawyers. And he used to tell me a judge who everyone used to look up to, and so with great respect. And at the end of the year party, he said he became drunk. Okay. And he said the way he was, it was actually pitiable. You actually felt in pity. He said, then I realized why Allah has made alcohol haram. Because it is one of the aspects that takes away your intellect.
Okay.
It befogs your intellect. And the intellect is that which distinguishes you from all other creation. Therefore, Allah Ta'ala sometimes appeals to this for you to follow the right path. Ya ayyuhal insan, ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. He doesn't say, oh you who believe, oh human being, what has deceived you from remembering your creator? Human being. What is that human being? The intellect. Why don't you use your intellect to bring you closer towards Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So intellectual well-being, they're able to think rationally, to be able to come to realize that the intellect has been given to us by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we find and we look into the universe to remember Allah. Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ard wa ikhtilafi al-layli wal nahar la ayatin li ulil albab. In the creation of the heavens and earth, in the changing of the day into night and night into day. Like, you know, my minutest situation, it clockwork. The night follows the day follows the night. Exactly at the time where you have already allocated, tomorrow this time will be sunrise. There are signs for people of intellect.
Right.
So I think the second thing is intellectual well-being.
Okay.
Right. The third thing is emotional well-being. There is no doubt whatsoever that physical and emotional is slightly different. I like to give this example. Many times you find, you know, in husband-wife relationship, you will find many times people will tell one of the spouses to treat the other spouse well. Or the husband will be told that look after the wife. And many times the husband might turn on and said, but what does she want? I gave her a house, I gave her a car, she got my credit card, she got everything.
Right.
Right? Well, what else does she want? There is an emotional aspect that you have to provide. It's not only a matter of giving her the needs. That's what Allah, what did our beloved Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said? Istawsu bin nisa'i khayra. I make wasiyat to you. I advise you to treat your wives kindly. This is the emotional aspect, the emotional well-being.
Okay.
Keeping, in fact, there was a nikah last week, and people were quite hungry, and you know, so my friends told me that you only speak for 5 minutes. So I said, I'm going to give you 2 messages. I say, in the time we are living in, I tell husband and wife, look after one another, care for one another, support one another, emotionally and spiritually. We are facing so much of turmoil. For whatever reason, people are not happy. People are facing challenges, whether it be the competitive nature of this world, whether it be the stress of modern day living, whether it be everyone is, trying to meet the bills, whatever it is, people are stressed out. People are facing challenges. See that you help one another emotionally.
Oh.
So I think the third thing is emotional well-being.
well-being.
And the fourth thing is spiritual well-being. You can never ever gain happiness if you are at odds with your creator.
Sure.
The one who created you, if you are not going to be remembering him, how can you gain happiness? The one who created happiness, وَأَنَّهُ هُوَ أَضْحَكَ وَأَبْكَى, says Allah in Surah Najm. Najm is a very beautiful Quranic surah. وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى. You just see the most beautiful rhythm. And then towards the end, Allah is the one who makes you smile and the one who makes you cry.
Oh.
Right? Allah is the one who creates happiness and sadness. He's the one who creates all of that. And He is the one who gives you life and takes away life. So the one who gives you happiness, if you are going to displease the one who creates happiness, who gives you happiness, how are you going to be able to get happiness? So I think, when we talk about happiness, I would look at it this 4 ways: physical well-being, intellectual well-being, emotional well-being, and spiritual well-being.
Ending on the spiritual side that you said, that's how we started the show, understanding that you mentioned it last to be the most important
yes,
one
yes.
that resonates with everybody, because in that we actually find that peace, because our heart is connected to our soul and our mind is connected to this world, and we need to distinguish between those two, because if we can't resonate with our heart, we're going to let our mind control everything, and the minute the mind starts controlling everything, we're going to be in a state of complete disarray.
And there's just one thing that comes to my mind. I remember a statement of the famous Sufi. Who doesn't know Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahmatullah alayh, the very great poet, philosopher, poet, the very great Sufi. And he said, if the leaders of the world and the wealthy people know the tranquility and the contentment and the satisfaction we get out of remembering Almighty Allah, they will try and buy it from us. They will try and send their armies to get it from us. But they won't get it from us because it cannot be purchased and it cannot be taken by force. It's an inner state that comes by remembering your Creator.
I heard a beautiful lecture the other day where the Imam was talking about when your heart breaks, it's at that point that it falls to the ground and submits to its creator. And even though you might find that heartbreak is one of the most painful things, it is your heart telling you, please take me back to the remembrance of my creator, because in that you will find your heart mending again with love for Allah. And with that love, you'd be able to find happiness in anything that Allah has blessed you with, because you'll see the blessings in everything.
Definitely, no doubt, so whatsoever. So I think that is important to start off in a positive way of how to achieve happiness.
No, that's fantastic. When we get into the next segment, because I know there's not going to be enough time for this, I want to discuss the misconception. The misconception that a lot of Muslims have. I know it's the white elephant in the room, and it's a question not everybody wants to address. But this world is a prison for the believer and a paradise for the non-believer, as our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam put it to us. And when you look at it, you think to yourself, am I supposed to just suffer through this world? It's supposed to be a prison, so I'm going to suffer, I'm going to perform my salah, I'm going to pay my zakat, I'm going to go for hajj, I'm going to do whatever I need to do. Let the suffering happen. I'm not going to make an effort to find any happiness, and then inshallah I will get my happiness in the year after. Is that the correct way of a Muslim to love?
I'll address it inshallah.
Because it is, I think it's a point that a lot of people have come to me and asked that, what's the use? But I'm sure Maulana's also gotten this point in that, because saying, what is the use that we need to do this? Because at the end of the day, we only striving for the year after.
Yeah.
But I feel that if we're not going to put the right things into place now, then how are we going to strive for the year after?
Definitely.
After the break, we're going to discuss the white elephant in the room. This is a really touchy topic, but I think it's such an important topic. So be sure to join us after the break, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Maulana, before the break, we were talking about happiness and about how some people feel that they're going to be miserable the entire time. And this is the way it's supposed to be. I mean, we know that's not right as well. But then some people also look for happiness in material things and thinking that's going to bring them the happiness. And we've discussed that in the previous episode as well. How do we find this balance between everything? And how do we know that, listen, this is not the way it's supposed to be and this is what we're supposed to do?
I think the first thing that I would just like to say in this regard is that many times people equate happiness with material acquisitions.
Right.
And not even that, even with regard to success, they feel we are successful if I have a certain amount of bank balance, if I'm driving a particular car, if I'm staying in a particular place, if I go holidays in a particular resort. That's the time, as if that is a marks of success. Now, if you look at the Holy Quran, Allah Ta'ala has many a times refuted this aspect of that being the criteria for success or happiness. In Surah Maryam, today I was teaching the tafsir of the Holy Quran this very morning. Allah Ta'ala says, وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ قَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَيُّ الْفَرِيقَيْنِ خَيْرٌ مَقَامًا وَأَحْسَنُ نَدِيًّا. That when the verses of the Almighty are recited to humanity, then the people who are disbelievers tell the believers, خَيْرٌ مَكَانٍ, who has got a better standard of living?
Yes.
Who have got more wealth? And of course, we look at the Western nations and they say, isn't that the meaning that Allah is happy with us or we are successful? So Allah Ta'ala says, وَكَمَا أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُم مِّن قَرْنٍ هُمْ أَحْسَنُ أَثَاثًا وَرِئْيًا. How many people we have destroyed previously who were even better off in living and more in terms of wealth, they had much more than you. But they didn't achieve success. They were not successful. They were not happy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them. So how do you make wealth the means of happiness? We find that there are many people who have had wealth. And there are many people who have achieved fame. Sometimes you think I can get fame. Look at the amount of people who are actors, actresses. How many of them have died of suicide?
Right.
How many of them have died of depression? I mean, you just find absolutely every now and then someone has passed on because of depression, because of suicide, committing suicide when they seem to have everything at their feet. Right. I remember one time reading about, was it the daughter of Aristotle Onassis?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Christina Onassis.
Yes.
They were saying the most wealthiest person in the world at that time. She was the sole heiress of the Onassis fortune. And 1 week before she died, a journalist asked her and said, "You are the most wealthiest woman in the world." And she replied, "The most wealthiest and the most unhappiest." And a week or so after that, she died in mysterious circumstances. Right? I remember reading about Mr. Was it Cal Caldwell or something like that? Phones for you or B for you. And they asked him about a happiness index. And he said, "My happiness index is 2 out of 10.
Sure.
With all the wealth that he had. So where do we get this whole particular situation that wealth guarantees you or is going to give you happiness? Or fame is going to give you happiness? I think we need to take it out of our equation. And I think one of the things that is, yes, there's nothing wrong in acquiring wealth. But the point is, when you acquire wealth, it doesn't make you proud and arrogant. It must make you humble to say, who granted you the wealth? Now, the difference between gratitude and arrogance is this. When a person has much and he attributes it to himself, that is arrogance. And a person who's got everything and then he attributes it not to my acumen, not to my situation, but to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Right.
That is gratitude.
Okay.
So sometimes if you refer everything to yourself, and like sometimes, we make this, it is said in half jest, it's hard to be humble when I'm so great.
Okay, right.
Or the other way around, in Surah Kahf, there's a most beautiful advice. A pious but somewhat poor person told a wealthy person, owner of 2 gardens, who was not a believer, and he was mocking this person who was a believer and he did not have the amount of wealth he had. And the person telling him, وَلَوْلَا إِذْ دَخَلْتَ جَنَّتَكَ قُلْتَ مَا شَاء اللَّهِ. Why didn't you when you entered your garden? And that garden, beautiful gardens, Allah describes it in the earlier portion of the ruku, and I can't go into it because of lack of time. Why didn't you, when you enter into that beautiful garden, say, this is what Allah willed for me? Why didn't you, when you enter your beautiful palatial home, say, this is what Allah willed for me?
Oh.
Why is it when you didn't go into your business or into your workplace or into the place where Allah Ta'ala has given you risk, say, this is what Allah willed for me? So I think it's Allah has given you things. It's a matter of being proud and arrogant about it or being grateful with regard to it.
So you're saying that if we had to sum everything up into one equation, we would take happiness equals gratitude plus the remembrance of Allah. Would that be our equation that if we had to put it together, our viewers out there are seeking happiness, looking for happiness, if we take these two aspects,
Yes.
combine them together, will we be able to find peace and happiness?
What that 4 aspects of well-being,
Yes, of course, the
mention
4 aspects.
Gratitude, meaning whatever you got, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. And maybe one day we will do a program. I got a 7-stage aspect of how to achieve gratitude.
Oh no, we have to do something. I mean, gratitude is a ball on its own that we really need to get to, inshallah.
So definitely that is a situation with regard
to it.
Yeah.
And then of course with regards to people saying, look, I'm just going to be miserable in this world.
That is something that it's a natural human being and a natural human instinct to be happy. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to make dua to Almighty Allah. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-huzn. أعوذ بك من البخل والجبن وأعوذ بك من العجز والكسل ونعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. What a beautiful dua. Allah, I seek your protection from, I'll make mention of the point that I need to emphasize right last. Allah, I seek your protection from helplessness and laziness. I seek your protection من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. I seek your protection from being in debt, overwhelmed by debt, owing people money, and being under the authority or the oppression of people.
Okay.
Right? Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-bukhli wal-jubn. I seek your protection from miserliness and cowardice. And the first thing, I seek your protection from grief and sorrow. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sought Allah's protection from grief and sorrow. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't say that you must be sad. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was the one who always, the Sahaba said, we always found him to be smiling, no matter what the situation. One Sahabi said, the day I reverted to Islam, I saw Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam smiling. I never after that ever saw him in a situation where he was not smiling.
Wow.
Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was one day smiling, and Umar radiallahu anhu came past and he saw Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam smiling and being happy. And he said, Adhakallahu sinnaka ya Rasulallah. May Allah always keep you happy and smiling, O Prophet of Almighty Allah.
Wow.
Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam loved it. So when of course that particular aspect, when you said, Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir, Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir. Dunya is a prison house for the believer, and it is in a paradise for the disbeliever. What is important is you can never ever get happiness by ill discipline. Just say, for example, a person has everything and he's ill disciplined. Half the time he is drunk.
Yes.
Will he be able to enjoy whatever wealth he has with regard to it? Because he doesn't have the discipline.
Yes.
So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala imposes upon us the restrictions, that restrictions is for our own betterment in this world and in the year after.
Wow.
When you have those restrictions, like for example, alcohol is prohibited.
Yes.
That prohibition is not detrimental to us.
It's to save us.
It's to save us.
It's fantastic.
So I think the point is that we must understand that the restrictions Allah has placed upon us. I sometimes wonder and I say that a person feels that I can go and satisfy my desire with whomsoever I want from the opposite sex.
Right.
But then what's the difference between you and an animal thereafter?
So true.
Will you ever be able to gain the joy of intimacy with someone whom you love in a halal situation?
Unbelievable. No, unbelievable. This is such a beautiful way that you've put it, and you've given our viewers so many tools that they can use to find happiness. Not one, not two, almost 10 different tools that they can take from. And once you start implementing one by one, you start finding yourself enjoying life a lot more in a beautiful way, not just from a materialistic way. Maulana, I want to acknowledge you for the unbelievable knowledge that you have. I want to acknowledge you for the person that you are to our community. We are so blessed here in South Africa to have someone with your knowledge. May Allah continue to shower His blessings upon you. May He continue to open your mind so that you can absorb this knowledge and teach it to us in the most blessed ways. I really want to acknowledge you for the unbelievable individual you are, Maulana. Maulana, one final question. It's a question I ask all my guests at the end, hypothetical question. It's your final day on earth, and you've lived, inshallah, a very, very long life. Allah grant you a long life, and you've accomplished everything you needed to accomplish. Written books, given lectures, done talk shows, everything that you wanted to do, spread the message as much as possible. But for some reason, everything has to be erased, and there's nothing left, not the show or anything. But you could leave the world with 3 pieces of advice. What would Maulana's 3 pieces of advice be?
Well, the first thing I would say is that you cannot live in this world in a happy way, in a successful way, without acknowledging your Creator. I would say keep a healthy relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Udhkurullah dhikran kathira. Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly. And only in the remembrance of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will you achieve satisfaction, will you feel contentment. And we want to remember Allah. And why shouldn't we remember Allah when Allah ta'ala is so merciful?
Wow.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so kind. Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna Allah rafiq." Allah ta'ala is kind. He loves kindness. He gives for kindness what He does not give for harshness. Allah ta'ala is the Ghafurur Rahim. He is most forgiving, most merciful. Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam's one most beautiful hadith. Inna Allah kataba kitaban fahuwa indi Inna Allah kataba kitaban fahuwa indi fawqa arshi. Allah has written a proclamation which He has kept on His throne. Inna rahmati sabaqat ghadabi. My rahmat and my mercy and my kindness overwhelms my wrath and my anger. So I would say the first thing is keep a relationship with Allah. Take out time to remember Allah. Take out time for your salat. Take out time to come closer towards Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we hope that inshallah because of that Allah ta'ala will grant us what Allah ta'ala in the Holy Quran says, وُجُوهُ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٍ إِلَى رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٍ. That day the faces will be radiant by seeing Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Inshallah.
Can you imagine that great type of benefit of seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the first thing I would say, yes, build and cultivate a relationship with Allah. Whether it be remembering Allah, reading Quran, reading your salat on time. There is no compromise with regard to salat. You are doing no one a favor if you're reading your salat.
Right.
It's your responsibility, it's your duty. The second thing I would say is, stay away from disputes and arguments.
Okay.
It's not worthwhile. I mean, really, for a short period of time, half the time we're sitting and we're arguing and we are unnecessarily creating turmoil. Just walk away from an argument.
That's a beautiful
وَإِذَا
one.
خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. When the ignorant try to provoke you into an argument, say peace. I don't want to make serve. I don't want to, engage in you with argument.
Right.
Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hadith, I guarantee a house in Jannah for the person who walks away from an argument, even if he's correct.
Perfect.
Just walk away from an argument, walk away from things that are unnecessary arguments.
Wow.
And keep relationship with people. There is no good in a person who is not loving to others and people don't love him.
Wow.
What good is in a person who can't love other people and people can't love him? Be loving to your parents, to your wives, your spouses, your children. That is the cornerstone of your life.
Fantastic.
Right? And the third thing I would like to say, be productive. Right? And I can't explain it better than what our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said. إِذَا أَتَتْ أَحَدُكُمُ السَّاعَةِ فَلْيَغْرَسِ الْفَصِيلَ فَلْيَغْرِسَهَا. If the time of Qiyamah comes and you are busy planting a seedling and you are planting a seed for a flower or a tree and you hear the trumpet of the day of Qiyamah, the day of judgment, which is going to signal the end of the world, don't stop. Continue planting it. So
Wow.
be productive till the last day of your life.
Such beautiful pieces of advice that Maulana, and inshallah our guests will take this, our viewers will take it, and they will understand the importance of implementing all three of these things. Once again, Jazakallah for being on the show and Jazakallah for sharing your knowledge with us. I know each one of you has thoroughly enjoyed this, and as Maulana so beautifully told us how important gratitude is, understand that gratitude is the magnetic chain that keeps everything that you have together, and while doing that, it draws even more towards you. So look for gratitude in your life, and that will lead you to happiness as well. This is motivation, and let me motivate you.